but it's who I am, and it's what God put me on earth to do, and it's my vision for my life, and my life is going in that direction, and so I'm going to make it happen. Welcome to the Ruckus Podcast, where we talk about being a person of influence and how to impact the culture and the world around you. Today we're going to talk about direction. Direction. What direction is your life going? How do you find out what direction your life is meant to go? One of my jobs is I teach at a local college, and I love teaching. I love being in the classroom. I love engaging with young people, because the cool thing about college is it is a collection and a group of people who've come together to figure out what they want to do in life. A lot of my students are fresh out of high school, and for those of you who graduated high school or graduated college even, you understand that pivotal moment when you graduate where all of a sudden there's this kind of pressure put on you to start making decisions about where you're going to go in life. And a lot of these people are fresh out of high school, and they've got different voices and different influences telling them where their life should go. A lot of them, their parents are telling them you should be an engineer. I talk to people whose parents are pushing them to be doctors, lawyers, accountants. There's also people as well who take classes who are already established in their careers, who are trying to get ahead in their careers and are taking classes in order to grow. Or some people who even have careers who are taking classes to maybe explore other career avenues as well. But the common thread that you find in most people at colleges is everyone is trying to figure out what direction their life is meant to go. And there are going to be a lot of moments in our life where we have to start making some decisions and start pointing our lives in a direction. But I think one of the greatest tragedies in life is for a person to not know who they are and where they're going. As a matter of fact, it is a tragedy for a person to never know who they are and to never know what direction their life is meant to go. So if you're listening today, I hope this episode encourages you and gives you some really practical advice and tips on how to discover who you are and the direction that you're going in life. And if you're listening and you think, hey man, I've already got my identity nailed and I already know what I'm doing in life, awesome. I still hope this episode encourages you and maybe inspires you to go help someone else in their journey, someone else you might know who's struggling to figure out what direction their life is meant to go. So when I think about direction and I think about my life and what I'm meant to do and who I'm called to be and the impact that I'm called to have, I pretty much boil it down to three things. When I feel a little bit lost at the moment, or when I feel a little bit kind of cloudy or jaded about where my life is going, I always fall back on these three things, and they usually help get me on track pretty quick. The three things is, number one, your identity, right? Who are you? Number two is your vision, right? What are you about? And number three, your values. What kind of person are you going to be? Who do you show up in the world as? And honestly, I believe that when you can nail those three things in your life, when you get clarity on those, on your identity, on your vision, and on your values as a person, I think you're going to have a much easier time moving your life in the direction it's meant to move. And I think you're going to be able to have the impact that God has called you to have on this earth. All right, so number one, identity. Who are you? When you sit in front of someone and someone asks you that question, who are you? Most of us, the first answer we would probably give is our name. My name is Justin. Then the next answer we might give is what we do, what we spend most of our time doing. So you might say something like your profession. I'm a teacher, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a accountant, I work here, I work there. And then maybe you'll go a little bit further and share the kinds of things that you're into or some of your interests. I'm into music, I'm into cars, I like to watch movies, I like to read books. But I think when you're asked the question and you actually reflect on it, on the depths and in your spirit and in your soul, who am I? Right? What is my identity? See, that's a different question altogether. And it's a very difficult question to answer, but it's something that you have to learn how to answer, right? You got to know who you are. And you're not just a teacher. You're not just an engineer. You're not just a doctor. You're not just a banker. You're not just what you do. You're not just what your hobbies are. You are someone as a purpose, as a person. You were marked by your purpose. You were created by God for a purpose, for a specific reason. and you're created unique from everyone else on this planet. And you got to know who you are. One of the things that's really helped me is I've come up with a very simple phrase over my life. I spent a lot of time in prayer, especially over these last few years, a lot of time in prayer, a lot of time reading the Bible, hanging out with people who love me and trying to get wisdom from people, and, a lot of time with my friends. And I've really spent a lot of time trying to really figure out and identify who I am. And, the answer that I've come up with and the kind of slogan that I have over my life right now is that I am a shepherd. Right? I believe that who I am as a person is I am a shepherd. I'm called to lead people. I'm put on this planet to help people. I'm put on this planet to help those who can't help themselves, to protect those who can't protect themselves. I'm here to help guide people towards God and towards their purpose. And that is who I am as a person. When I wake up and I'm questioning, why am I getting up today? Who am I to get up today? That is the phrase that I've come up with myself. I'm a shepherd. You see, the thing is, when you understand who you are and you have a strong sense of identity, what that does is that inspires you to do what you're supposed to do and to go in the direction you're meant to go. See, when I wake up in the morning, some of my habits is, when I first wake up in the morning, I read my Bible. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm human, and it's not like every morning I wake up, I'm like, man, I'm so excited to read my Bible and pray. Man, I cannot wait to wake up and get out of bed to read my Bible. I have a few mornings like that, but to be honest, a lot of mornings I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm in my bed. I could lay here, be comfortable. I can cave to the comfort, or I can get up and read my Bible. But then I start to tell myself, well, no, you're a shepherd. You have to get up. You have to read your Bible. It's who you are. You see, and as a result of reminding myself who I am, I wake up every morning and I read my Bible and I share what I've learned. I've established a really good habit of going to the gym 5 times a week minimum, right? And when I wake up in the morning and I go, it's not like every morning I wake up like, yeah, I'm excited to go. I usually go at like 5:30 in the morning. I go because when I wake up and after I read my Bible, I look and I'm like, well, if I'm a shepherd, I got to go be an example to people. I've got to go be an example of healthy habits. As a shepherd, if I'm going to lead and if I've got to help people, if I'm going to show up as my best self, I got to take care of myself physically. So as a shepherd, I got to go to the gym. It's not an option. See, when you understand who you are, it begins to give you the inspiration and the motivation to do what you're supposed to do. Right, so number one, you got to understand who you are, understand your identity. Come up with a really simple phrase. Don't complicate it. Don't write like a paragraph about who you are. Come up with a very simple phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4 words max, right? For me, I'm a shepherd, right? I have a friend. I love him, and he says, I am a leader of multitudes. His dream and his vision is that he would be used, that God would use him to inspire multitudes of people, and he believes it, and he believes it deep within him. That's who he is. And so when we talk, it's funny, we always say it. And I'm just like, hey, my man, how's it going? Leader of multitudes. And he's like, yeah. Why? Because that's who he is. And you have to know who you are. And part of a really practical tip for being able to know who you are is come up with just a simple phrase explaining who you are, a simple kind of slogan over your life and over your identity. Right? So number one, know your identity. Know who you are. Number two, know your vision. Right? Your vision tells you what you're about. Your vision is why God put you on this earth. Your vision is what impact you're meant to have on the world around you. And you got to get clear with your vision, right? Knowing who you are will give you the inspiration and the motivation to get up and do what you're supposed to do. But your vision is what's going to give you the direction and point you in the direction as to where you're meant to go with your life. And what is your vision? Ultimately, your vision is what you were put on earth to do. It's what impact were you meant to have? How are you meant to impact the world with your life when you were created by God? And so for me, I've spent time and I've made some very clear statements about what my vision for my life is, what God's vision for my life is. I spent a lot of time in prayer and the Bible getting that vision, because I think if you really want to know the best vision for your life, you're only going to find that in your maker, and that's in God. And yeah, you can read books and you can, hire some coaches and mentors or whatever to help you with that. That's all good as well. But ultimately, the core depth purpose, you got to go to your maker, right? I work as an engineer as well. And when users have a hard time using the products that we design, they call the maker, right? And we tell them how to use it properly. We tell them how to fix it when it's not working. And so if you don't have vision for your life and your vision is not working for your life, you got to go back to the source to figure out your vision and to figure out the vision you're created for. So how do you get vision for your life? Well, you got to get real specific, right? You got to get real specific with what you want your life to accomplish while you're on earth. And specifically, that's often going to be, a real, true, genuine vision is going to involve serving people. It's going to involve impacting others, and really leaving the world better than you found it. So when I think about my vision, I've kind of summarized it in 3 statements. Is number 1, I help people find God, discover their purpose, and become people of influence. That's the first statement. I help people find God, discover their purpose, and become people of influence. Number 2 vision that God has given me for my life is that I empower young people to change the world. Right? That's why I love being on college campuses. It's why I love serving the young people at my church. Is I feel and I believe, and my vision for my life is to empower young people who change the world. And I have spent thousands of hours learning how to do that. I've read books. I've traveled the world. I've spent a lot of my life with young people just trying to empower them and inspire them. And last but not least is I influence leaders who shape the culture, right? I love leadership. I love influencing and inspiring people and helping people become the best versions of themselves and helping them find God and helping them find their purpose as well. You see, that is my vision for my life. That is my clear vision for my life, is I help people find God, discover their purpose, and become people of influence. I empower young people who change the world, and I inspire leaders who shape the culture. See, now the cool thing is now that I have a vision for my life, now all my decisions about where my life is going have some kind of direction. I'll tell you one of the big life-changing moments I had in the last few years is when I decided to change careers. About maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I really started feeling a little, I don't want to say uncomfortable. I guess it was a little bit uncomfortable, but I really started feeling just not at ease with my career choice at the time. I was an electrical engineer. I still do it part-time. But I spent my full-time job, 40, 50 hours a week designing products for acoustic instruments, right? For guitars, for music. And if you know me, music is one of my loves. It's one of my passions. I love music, and it was like my dream was to do music. And so, honestly, I had this dream job, right? I get to be around music gear all day. I get to design it. I get to play with it. I get to make noise all day and kind of do the rock and roll thing. But I also get to nerd out and geek out with all the tech. On paper, I had the dream job. But I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, I was just sitting in my office and, I was building some prototypes. And I just realized, and it hit me, like, as much fun as I have doing this, there's just this call for significance. Like, I don't believe this is what the vision for my life is. Yeah, I love making guitar sound good. I love guitar tone. I'm into guitar tone. And you musicians know exactly what I'm talking about. But I just started to have these thoughts and these conversations with myself and these conversations with God that I don't know if this is why I was put on earth. I'm grateful for my job. I have an amazing job. I'm not complaining. I wasn't complaining about it. It wasn't like I was ungrateful or I was depressed about it. I just began to have this urge, like, I don't think this is what I'm meant to do with my life. And so I remember I started thinking about what to do. I started looking into teaching a little bit. I was looking into going to get a teaching credential, trying to look at that. But at the time, I'd bought a house. I had a full-time job, and then I also, had a lot of ministry going on at the time. And when I just started looking at my life and trying to figure out how to make that work to go back to school and maybe try teaching, it just wasn't something I can make work at the time. So I just kind of was like, okay, well, I'll put that on my list of dreams to achieve one day. But for now, I got to keep doing what I got to keep doing. But I remember I just started getting this clear vision, and it kept becoming this thing on my heart and in my mind, and I would just think about it all day, like, this isn't where I'm meant to be. This isn't where I'm meant to be. And I began to think about my vision for my life, and I began to talk with God about it. And I'll tell you, when you begin to get vision, when you get a clear identity, a clear vision of your identity, right? When you get clear on your identity and your vision, right? You begin to see that your life will naturally begin to start drifting in that direction, and God will begin to start leading you in those directions, right? So back to my situation where I'm trying to figure out how to teach, because that was what I felt was in my heart at the time. I never taught before, by the way. I've taught, in like small groups and at my church and taught some things like that, but I never taught students at the school level or the college level before. And one day in my office, this is about 6 months after I looked into going to school to get my teaching credential and decided I couldn't at the time. This man who was a friend of our CEO's and some of the upper leadership in our company, he comes and he says, "Hey, you're Justin, right?" I said, "Yeah." I had these prototypes that I was building on my workbench at the time. And he says, "Hey, do you want to teach electronics at our local junior college at Hancock?" And I just had this moment. I'm just like, what? He said, "Do you want to teach at Hancock? We are desperate for teachers right now, and we're looking for anyone who's willing to teach electronics. And your name came up, and I came over to see if you would be interested in teaching electronics." I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Do you have a teaching credential?" I said, "No, I don't, but I'm willing to teach." He said, "Okay, you could teach." And then the first class he offered me to teach, he said, "Well, would you be willing to teach robotics?" And I told him, "Well, to be honest, I have not done robotics. I took a class back in college way back in the day in it, but other than that intro class, I've never done it, but I can learn it. I can learn it quick, and I can teach it." The guy said, "Okay, the job's yours." And so that was around COVID time. I started teaching a little bit, and then eventually the opportunity came for it to become a full-time gig. And so now I teach. That's kind of my full-time gig. I do have some other side jobs as well. But you see, part of my vision for my life, right, is number one is I help people find God, discover their purpose, and become people of influence. You see, on a college campus, that is a place where I can really see my vision come to pass, right? Also, the second statement in my vision, to empower young people to change the world, right? You at the college, you get to interact and engage and inspire and be a voice in these people's lives, these young people who are figuring out what they want to do in life and are trying to figure out the vision for their life. You understand this is the perfect place for me in terms of what my vision for my life is. And when I began to get clear on that, it wasn't that, I just started taking steps and doors started opening. It was like literally the doors started coming to me and opening. And so when you get clear on your identity and you get clear on your vision, you're going to start finding that your life is automatically going to start going in the direction it's supposed to go. I also spend a lot of time and really committed to the young people in my church. I'm a young leader. I'm a leader of the young people. I'm a young leader as well. But I'm a leader of the young people in my church as well. And that's just my vision. That's what God has put within me. That's who I am. That's why I was put on earth, is to help young people find God, discover their purpose, become people of influence, change the world. And I believe in young people, right? Even when a lot of the older generations and a lot of what you hear on news right now talks about the young generation and how screwed we are with Gen Z and all these new generations, man, I have so much hope and I get so inspired when I talk to them, because I believe, that God is doing something great in them. I believe that they're going to take the torch and they're going to run and they're going to make this world a better place. See, that's a vision that God's put within me, and it gets me passionate and it gets me excited, and it will even inspire me to leave my current career, right? My career in engineering was a much more secure career than teaching in almost every area, right? Financially, job security wise, right? I'm on a contract every year. My program could be gone next year. I don't know. And then I'm kind of left to figure out what to do. But it's who I am, and it's what God put me on earth to do, and it's my vision for my life. And my life is going in that direction. And so I'm going to make it happen. So you got to get clear on your vision for your life. And if you want to get clear on your vision, I'd say come up with 2 or 3 statements, right? Be a little more specific than with your identity, right? Your identity is kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 words. With your vision, you want to get a little more detailed with it. Get a couple statements, but really come up with some statements about why you're on earth and what you were meant to bring and how you're meant to serve the world around you. All right, number 3, your values. What are your values? Your values are your principles, right? They are your code of conduct, if you will. If you want to be a person of impact and you want to impact the world around you, you have to have integrity. What integrity means is you have principles and you stick with them, even when those principles are challenged. It kind of represents your moral compass, if you will, as to what you're willing to do to compromise who you are and what you're about. And you got to have a solid value system. Personally, my value system comes from the Bible. It comes from God's word. It comes from my time in prayer. It comes from my faith in God. And why? Because it's time tested, right? In my life personally, but also in the world and throughout history. The Bible has stood the test of time, and therefore, for me, that is where I derive a lot of my values and my core beliefs about who I am, right, my identity, about my vision, but also about the values and about the way that I show up in the world and about the way that I treat others and, the things that I'm willing to and not willing to do in order to compromise who I am as a person. So you got to know your values. And I'll share some of mine with you. Your values are going to be a lot more specific. They're going to be a lot more lengthy, right? Your identity is kind of 4 or 5 words. It's simple. Your vision is a little more detailed, but not like crazy complex. It's not paragraphs, it's maybe a couple sentences. But your values, this is where you get really specific and really dialed. So one of my number one values is that I am deeply loved by God, and so are others around me. I am deeply loved by God, and so are others around me. So what that means is that if I'm loved by God, right, that I treat myself with love and respect and dignity. And likewise, everyone in the world around me, that God created them and God cares about them as well. So therefore, I treat them with love and dignity and respect as well. Another value of mine is that I have a dynamic relationship with God that I engage with daily. I have a dynamic relationship with God that I nurture daily. Every day I spend time with God. Every day I spend time trying to grow in my faith, pursuing God. What that looks like practically is every day I read my Bible and pray, right? I meditate on God's word. I seek him every day. That directs a lot of my actions and a lot of the things that I do is I spend time every day doing that. Another value of mine is I'm a man of my word. I make a promise and I keep it. That means that when I say something, if it's a value of mine and I say I'm going to do something, that means I got to do it as an integrous person, right? So one of my values that I try to stick to is that I am a man of my word. If I make a promise, I will keep it, that people can trust me. Another value of mine is that I am responsible for everything in my life, and that gives me the power and control to change my circumstances. I am responsible for everything in my life, and that gives me the power and the control to change my circumstances. See, that means that I'm not a victim. It doesn't matter how hard life is. It doesn't matter, if I grew up with great parents. It doesn't matter if I grew up sick. It doesn't matter if I grew up poor. It doesn't matter what obstacles life has thrown my way. I'm not a victim. I'm responsible for every action I take. I'm responsible for every outcome in my life. And when I take responsibility for my life, that's when I get the power and the control to change my circumstances. The Bible says that we have been given a spirit of freedom to not go back to slavery, to paraphrase. And so, I'm not a slave. I'm not a victim of myself. I'm not a victim of my upbringing. I'm not a victim of whatever happens around me in the world. That I'm responsible for my realm. I'm responsible for the influence that I've been trusted with. And as a result, that means that I get to become a better person. I get to improve. When life throws a challenge at me, because I'm responsible, that means that I can overcome. So I'm responsible for everything in my life, and that gives me the power and control to change my circumstances. Another value of mine is that I lead when called upon, and I follow when I must. If there's ever a need in my realm, whether it's at my church, whether it's at school, whether it's even in my home, if there's ever a need within my family to lead, I will step up and I will do it. Likewise, if I've got to step back and I've got to follow, let's go. I'm a follower and I'm also a leader. I lead when called upon, follow when I must. Another value of mine is I leave others better than I found them. Right? Every time I engage with someone or I talk with someone, I always try to leave that person a little bit better than I found them. I always try to give some kind of encouragement to them. If I have some kind of wisdom to offer, I try to offer it, or any kind of advice I have, or if someone needs just a friend or an ear to listen to, I always try to do something in that person's life to leave them better than when they encountered me. I've got a whole longer list of values as well, but you've got to come up with a list of values of who you are as a person and what your moral code of conduct is. Another one of my values is I treat others with respect, and I demand respect back. I'm going to respect people. I treat people with respect, but hey, you also got to respect me too. You see, and that actually was a very difficult value for me for a very long time. because for a very long time I had a very low self-image and self-esteem, and I really lacked in my identity and my vision. But once you get clear on your identity and your vision and your values, you begin to be like, oh man, I've really got to treat people with respect, but hey, also I'm worthy of respect as well. I mean, you've got to be a person worthy of respect, obviously, but you've got to learn to love and respect yourself. So, if you're struggling with direction in your life, I want to encourage you, set aside an hour. Set aside several hours if you can. Turn off the phone, get away from distractions, go out on a hike, go to the beach or something, just take a notebook with you. And I want you to start writing these 3 things down. Write your identity. Who are you? Write a very simple statement about who you are. 4 or 5 words max. Don't make it complicated. Number 2, write your vision. What is your specific vision for your life? What were you put on earth to do? What impact do you want to have on the earth before you die? And number 3, write a long list of your values. Right? What are my guiding principles that guide who I am as a person and what I do? And I guarantee you that when you get clear on those 3 things, on your identity, on your vision, and on your values, you're going to start seeing that your life is going to start naturally starting to align itself with the direction that you're meant to go. You're going to start seeing that, not only is your life going to start aligning, not only are the right doors going to start opening for you, but you're actually going to start seeing that your life is going to start having a big impact on the people around you. That you're going to start seeing people around you are going to start looking to you and being like, whoa, hey, there's something different about this person. I need to spend time with this person. There's something I can learn from this person, right? You have something to give of the world and to give people around you, to give them hope and inspiration and to help them, figure out who they are as well. So identity, vision, and values, get clear on those, and I guarantee you will have a much easier time finding the direction in your life. So I hope this was encouraging for you. Please make sure that you listen, that you subscribe, that you like. We're up on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on Google Podcasts, all those platforms. Please make sure you subscribe, like, listen. It really helps us. We still have a lot of great content planned for you coming up. But until next time, much love.